My brother has done a couple of really good videos about ICE agents and Border Patrol agents with the recent murders um, of two innocent men, two men who were not their targets, and the violence that these ICE agents are, you know, committing across our country, and how at some point they're going to be held liable for that. And you know, ICE ICE agents are, clearly they're untrained, they're unskilled, they're violent, they're insanely aggressive to do the simplest thing. I think most of them are, ex January 6th insurrectionists that got pardoned. But they seem to be these men who have an insatiable lust for violence. And I think that you can expand that to law enforcement in general these days. And I think that because anytime I see law enforcement interacting with the general public, it is astonishing how overly aggressive and violent they are. And my belief is that the entirety of law enforcement is broken. And I don't think you can be a good cop in a bad system, because there is no place for you. There's nowhere for you to exist as a good cop. And I was thinking about this, and my mom was married to a cop for a while, and it was the closest I ever came to interacting with anyone in law enforcement. He was a super sweet guy. I really liked him. And I think he was a watch commander in this little rural town. And I had no idea what, I always knew it'd be tough job being a cop. And he said, "Hey, you want to do a ride along sometime?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, man. I would love that, and I'm just a curious person. I've always been interested in what other people do and what it's like, and what are the mechanics of being a police officer, and like, not from a TV standpoint, but from a reality standpoint." So I did that. And he had two brothers that were older than him. I think maybe one was older, one was younger. They were all Vietnam vets. They all had PTSD. But my stepdad was, he had a very soft side to him, very approachable side. His two brothers, I think, less so. They were more kind of toxic masculinity, more aggressive. But I got to see, I think I did this ride along with him, and they arrested somebody, and it's, one of those scenes where, 4 or 5 cop cars pull up and they're all there. And I got to see how these police officers spoke about the people they were interacting with, and it was astonishing to me. It was like, it was really eye-opening to me. I was just like, wow, this is, I don't know, it seemed, for one, just incredibly racist to start with, but also just, the irony that they were there to protect and serve. Because I saw several interactions that night, and several of them were just very, very non-violent, non-criminal in nature. Sometimes people just, in a really bad spot that needed help. And I couldn't believe the lack of humanity that I was witnessing, and it really shook me to my core. And this was long before police departments started getting these massive budgets and being able to, walk around in tactical gear and plate armor. They had bulletproof vests, of course, but they didn't look like military, personnel, and they weren't riding around in armored vehicles and it was just old school cop car, as you would imagine what you see on Hill Street Blues kind of kind of thing. And since then, the militarization of law enforcement has just been off the chain, and ICE is just another example of that. But I think the whole system is broken. I don't think ICE is certainly broken and needs to be abolished and needs to be um, it needs to be wiped out. And if you want to have some kind of ICE-like agency, we need to start from scratch and build that from the ground up. But I think that's a problem with law enforcement in general. Um, the level of violence of these men and how quick they are to react with violence. It's like it's the go-to. It's like I've just seen example after example, and you see protests happening, and then you see these, like, it looks like you're just being confronted with a military unit, out in the streets of America. And I think it's insane. I think it's unsustainable. I think it's representative of the erosion of democracy in our country and the erosion of free speech and this lust for authoritarian control and power. And I think it's also symptomatic of just the violence of men. The violence of men is a major, major problem. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I know from an individual level, men facing their feelings, and it's like all of this rage and anger and violence is something that comes out and is expressed outwardly because these men are not dealing with their emotions, they're not dealing with their life experiences and their hurts and their harm and their trauma, so they just traumatize others as a way of coping. And I think that's kind of ground zero for it. But I also think that these men should not be allowed anywhere near a position of power. And there's so many of them that gravitate towards positions of power because they can exercise it in this way, and they can abuse, poor people, black people, people of color, immigrants, women, even children. And something's got to be done, man, because this is not sustainable.